got something to say. You wanted to play, then come running my way and ruin G status is dead. No, ready to go, about to go in, you already know. Got my instructions, now give me your audience, hand me your mic and I'm ready to blow. One for the money, two for the show, three for everybody who encouraged me to go, get it. We finally did it, I ain't never turning back, shawty. I'm fully committed to my beliefs, I'm committed to the sin. I'm about to give them what they want, what they need, what they ask for. Give them what they want, what they need, what they ask for.
And now, from a cave behind a waterfall in the heart of the Ozarks, it's the cipher of the classified, the Riddler of the ridiculous, the speaker of the surreptitious, and the host of JimSpiracy, Jimmy Dodds.
All right, y'all. Welcome to JimSpiracy. I'm your host, James D. Dodds. You know who I am, the humble host that be doing the most. That dude that be sending up the grape juice toast. The one that tells you all the time that God is good and God is good all the time and all the time God is good. I'm the one that tells you that he told you that where two or more are gathered in my name. He said, there am I. You know the rules. I'm here. You here. So he's here. So let's get blessed, all right? Let's go ahead and get on with the show. Before we even get started, you're going to take a little notice, and you're going to notice we didn't have a man on the street this morning. You know, with this episode, we didn't do a man on the street. Well, there's a little reason why we didn't do a man on the street, and I'm going to do you a quick little video, and I'm going to give you a little prelude to what happened why I don't have a man on the street. Check this out. Hey, man, this is your boy, Uncle Jimmy. Oh, okay, sorry. I thought you was calling me baby. You talking about a real baby. I thought she was flirting with me. Anyway, hey, I just got a bet from my boy Deucey. You know, got a bet for you. You know, you're a gambler, man. Hey, Deucey, I bet you $50 right now. I race you from here to the end of the hallway.
That's the only time you'll ever be able to get me in a race.
Bro, this ain't no time for excuses. $50 right now. You see him making excuses, right? You see him making excuses. He don't want none of this heat.
I got 3 holes in my stomach.
Right? He don't want none of this heat because I'm about to give him this work, y'all.
3 holes in my stomach.
Making excuses, boy. You don't want this smoke. We're going to talk about that. And I'm going to tell you all about that next week. All right. But for this week, what we're going to do, we're going to talk about today's show. Jump over to Twitter. Hit the Twitter. Do me a favor. Follow me on Twitter, man, if you haven't already. I always ask people to follow me on Twitter, but, you know, follow me on Twitter. I don't know what my Twitter handle is, but somebody figured out what it is and put it up. Hit the like button. Hit the subscribe button if you would, please. Tell a friend. Today's show, we're going to talk about the moon landing. And today's Twitter poll for today's show is, was the moon landing faked? Listen to the word very carefully, y'all. I didn't say, was it fake? I said, was it faked? Okay? And at this point, 63% of y'all think that, am I allowed to say the nacho bus? Can I say nacho bus? I think I can say nacho bus because Marcellus Wiley said that he used to ride the nacho bus. So evidently y'all acting like y'all think I rode the nacho bus. Take a look at what it says. Evidently some of y'all think that I'm crazy. What is that? What is that poll again? 63% of y'all think that Uncle Jimmy's BSC. Bat crap crazy. And then evidently 36.7% of y'all says it could happen. I could believe that. Well, nonetheless, here's what I want you to do. After you get done hearing my guest today, after you get done checking him out, I guarantee you some of them numbers may switch. I don't mean switch. They might change. Okay. Nowadays, you got to be careful using words like switch. But I guarantee you, after you get done with my guest today, after he gets done talking to you, I would be interested, and I want y'all to write in the comments. Matter of fact, some of y'all that's following the show right now, those of you, Donnie, Christina, and some of the rest of y'all, respond and tell me if you believe that it was fake or not. And especially those of you that don't believe it's fake. After we get done with this show, I want you to write and tell me what you think after we do this. All right. All right. Now, our guest tonight is Bart Sibrel. He's the author of Moon Man. I'm sorry. He's the author of Moon Man. It's the true story of a filmmaker that found his way onto the CIA hit list. He's also the director of a movie called A Funny Thing Happened on the Way to the Moon. And he's also the author of my favorite, Astronauts Gone Wild. And I'm not making that title up. That's the title, Astronauts Gone Wild. Okay, you want to see something crazy? You want to see some astronauts getting crazy? Go see this video right here. Now, some of you all, let me tell y'all now, Uncle Jimmy's kind of stepping his game up. I'm getting big time here. Now, my guest today, y'all might not know who this guy is. The name Bart Sibrel. I just call him Bart. Okay. But it might not mean anything to y'all, but do y'all remember this guy that got punched in the face by Buzz Aldrin? Because he asked Bart a simple question. Because he asked Buzz a simple question. He went around to the astronauts and asked the astronauts, hey, if you landed on the moon, place your hand on the Bible. If you walked up to me and asked me if I've ever slept with a raccoon, I can place my hand on a Bible and look you dead square in your eyes and say, no, I have not, to the best of my recollection. So I don't understand what the big problem is. Put your hand on the Bible. Yes, I walked on the moon. Well, anyway, in case you might have missed it, because I just realized there's certain things that I just assumed that everybody knows. This is what happened when this guy went up and asked Buzz Aldrin if he actually walked on the moon. Roll this video.
Turn this off. Yeah, turn it off.
Why don't you swear on the Bible that you walked on the moon?
I'm not trying to get in the middle of anything.
Tell him to get out of here.
This is a hotel.
We'll call
Right,
the police.
We pay.
Come on in here. We'll call the police.
Solicit
You like that?
Why don't you swear on the Bible that you walked on the moon?
It doesn't, sir. I have nothing to do with this. But
Okay.
you cannot solicit on this property.
We just paid
Right now,
to rent out the penthouse to shoot up there. So
you can't solicit like this on this property.
keep shooting.
All right. Well, then I'd go through my measures.
Yeah.
You got to keep shooting, man. Okay. Well, you can put it on your shoulder. Don't be shy.
Just come with me, Buzz.
You really like attention, don't you?
You're the one who said you walked on the moon when you didn't. Calling the kettle black, if I ever thought of it. Saying I misrepresented myself.
Away from me.
You're a coward and a liar and a thief.
Oh, ow, wait, wait. What? He punched him dead square in the mouth in front of everybody. I need to know how much money he got out of that. If you get punched in the face, by an astronaut in front of cameras. Woo, that's got to be worth some money, okay? I need to talk to this guy and find out exactly what it was he did that got Buzz Aldrin's skibbies in a bunch. But before we get to that, as always, I got to roll a few headlines. So let's go ahead and pay some bills. Chris, roll that intro. I don't know if I'm starting to like this segment or not, because truth is starting to get a whole lot stranger. I also find it quite interesting that we're starting to do shows, and as these shows go on, more and more news comes out after we do the show. Remember, we did the show last week about Anne Hesh. Some more Anne Hesh details have just come up. Now they're saying that tragic new details emerge about Anne Hesh. I can't see that. Move. Get out of the way. I can't see it. Cancel. Regarding Anne Hesh. There we go. Let me move that out of the way. I'm sorry, y'all. I'm not real computer savvy smart, so I don't know how to make this thing work. Anyway, some new details emerge about Anne Hesh, about her and her death. They say that Anne Hesh, granted, she did have some booger sugar in her blood. And here's the thing that I find is interesting about Anne Hesh. This statement says that they say that she was in the house for 40 minutes and they couldn't get her out. Really? I thought you was trained better than that. But here's what I thought was interesting. It said that she never to regain consciousness. Hesh went into a coma immediately following the accident. Okay? Why would we not believe that? They said she went into a coma immediately following the accident. Well, of course you believe that unless you watch JimSpiracy. And while you're watching JimSpiracy, you saw this happen right here. Now, I know this is Hollywood, and I know that. Can we show that just one more time in case y'all missed it? Because in case y'all don't realize, that's Anne Hesh. Okay. Everything just froze. Everything just froze. Everything just blinked in the studio. Huh? We don't even know if it's recording. Surely. Okay. There it is right there. I don't know. Have any of you ever seen somebody in a coma get up like that and reach for the straps and you have to grab them like that? That doesn't look like any coma I've ever seen. We'll be back with my guy Bart on JimSpiracy.
The 1969 moon landing. It's considered one of the greatest triumphs in the history of humanity. It's the crown jewel of American technology and ingenuity. It was a beacon of hope for the country in the heart of the Cold War with the Soviet Union. Could it have been completely faked? It's one of the most enduring and mysterious conspiracy theories ever, and it just won't go away. With distrust in our government at an all-time high, some estimate that 20% of Americans think the moon landing was faked. The percentage is far higher in England and Russia. Could the US have staged this elaborate hoax just to score points in the Cold War with Russia? How would they have done it? Most theorize that they used Hollywood special effects to trick the world, some pointing the finger at director Stanley Kubrick. The theory is that the technology is not available to travel that far. The massive distance and the radiation belt are just two of the obstacles. Scientists and authors question many things about the moon landing narrative. Why are shadows coming from different directions as they would with studio lights? Why have astronauts given conflicting stories? How did they survive 250-degree temperatures? Why have we never returned to the moon? Why has NASA evidence been destroyed? The questions are endless. Tonight, JimSpiracy will ask a few more. This time to the man who got punched by Buzz Aldrin himself, just for being curious.
Welcome back. And as I told you, the man of the hour today is Mr. Bart Sibrel.
I'd say Sibrel.
Sibrel. Okay. See what I mean? This is the advantage of having a live guest. This is the advantage of having a live guest. You get to correct it. This is my guest today, Mr. Bart Sibrel. He's the author of Tell me what you're the author of. Hell, Ted, you're here. Who are you? What you're the author of what, sir?
Well, I just came out with a book that you can get at Sibrel, SIBREL.com, called Moon Man, the true story of a filmmaker on the CIA hit list. And it's kind of the backstory of 2 films that I produced about the unfortunate falsification of the moon landings. My films cost $1 million, and we were financed by a board member of an aerospace company who builds rockets for NASA, who knows they're fake, who gave us $1 million to expose it as his patriotic duty to Americans. So in the film, we basically open up. The first one's called "A Funny Thing Happened on the Way to the Moon." And we open up with the Tower of Babel, which basically was, until about the 18th century, the greatest technological achievement that mankind could do was to build the tallest structure. So it says in Genesis 6 that the reason why they did it was to boast, to have a name for themselves. And of course, it was never finished. Then we showed the Titanic, which they had the audacity to put in print, the ship that God himself could not sink.
This was actual print.
Absolutely. And of course, it was never finished either. It didn't make one voyage. And then when Richard Nixon knew that they were not on the moon, I know where you're going with this. He didn't even have the guts to show up for the launch. Imagine that. You're going to the moon for the first time, you're president, and you don't show up. Why? Because he knew they were fake. And who knew they would get away with it? Maybe they would get caught, and then forever you'd have a picture of yourself as president shaking Neil Armstrong's hand. He literally distanced himself, and once they got away with faking it, then he showed up for the launch. And he said, allegedly talking on the phone from the White House to the moon, somehow with 1969 technology, he said putting a man on the moon was the greatest event since creation, when he knew they weren't there. And it just dawned on me, Jimmy, just a few weeks ago, that faking the moon landing is really a blasphemous event. And as I told you before we got started, the #1 reason I hear from people as to why the moon landings must be real is that the government would never lie about such an important thing. Therefore, they must be real. And yet, we have 4 proofs in the book that are individually, irrefutably prove that the moon landings are fake. If you had just one of the 4, it would prove it. But we have 4 of them. The first, if you go to Sibrel.com, you can click on Moon Man video links, and you can see a picture. We have a picture allegedly taken on the moon, where the shadow from an astronaut is at 12 o'clock and a shadow from a rock 5 feet away is at 9 o'clock. Now, all you have to do is go out in sunlight, stand beside a friend out in your front yard, and you'll see that your shadows always run parallel in sunlight. It's impossible for them to intersect. So we have a picture from allegedly the last mission to the moon with the shadows intersecting at 90 degrees from objects 5 feet apart.
We're actually looking at that picture. The people,
that's
people can see this
all the
proof.
Right, you don't need any more proof. It's impossible for sunlight to cast shadows that intersect at 90 degrees from objects 5 feet apart. Sunlight is always parallel. This one picture scientifically proves that they were filmed with electrical light, which means they're on Earth. That proves it. Then we have just logic. Right now, with 50 years better technology than in 1969, the farthest that NASA can send astronauts from the surface of the Earth is 250 miles up. So just pick a city 250 miles away, make that vertical. That's as far as they can send them. If it weren't the case, the Artemis rocket would have people on board to orbit the moon, right? They can't even put people on it because it's too dangerous.
How far is the moon?
Well, it's about 1,000 times farther than the space station. So what they're claiming is if today the farthest they can send astronauts is 1,000th the distance to the moon, what they're saying is with 4K computing power and all of NASA, which is 1/1,000,000th the computing of power of a cell phone, in 1969, on the first attempt with untried technology, they went 1,000 times farther with 5 decades older technology on the first attempt than they can travel today. How can technology be 1,000 times greater in 1969 than in 2022?
I want to stop you right there. I want to stop you because I've heard you say this, and I need you to repeat this again. I need you to repeat this because it's so simple. simplistic.
I know.
Listen to what he said. I know how great America tells the world that they are. I know how great we say we are. Listen to you all didn't realize, you didn't pay attention to the examples that he gave. The Titanic, the Towers of Babel. These have been attempts at man at showing their greatness, at their equality to God.
That's right.
And in this one attempt, it was complete. Not only was it complete as a drone, you didn't send some puppies up in the air. You didn't send some monkeys up in there. You sent 3 living beings and landed perfectly. I'm sorry, but
sure, I'll repeat it.
Am I right about that?
Well, yeah. Again, first of all, we have shadows intersecting at 90 degrees from objects 5 feet apart, which is impossible to do in sunlight, which means it's not sunlight, which means it's electrical light, which means it's on Earth. Secondly, the farthest that NASA can send astronauts from the surface of the Earth today, with 5 decades better technology than 1969, is 250 miles into space, or where the space station is. The moon is 1,000 times farther. So what they're really saying is they had 1,000 times better technology in 1969 than they do today. If it weren't for people's emotional attachment to, how dare you say the moon landings are fake, they would see it for what it is. I mean, if I told you, Jimmy, in 1969, Toyota made a car that could go 50,000 miles on 1 gallon of gasoline. Fantastic. But for some reason, 5 decades later, their best car, the Prius, can only do 50 miles on 1 gallon, or 1,000th the distance. What would you say? Would you believe that they could go?
Can I play along here? Mm-hmm. So you told me that there was a vehicle that could travel all of these miles, right? I would say to you, if this is true, where's the records? Where's the records that you used to make this happen? So we can look back at it and duplicate it and make it better, right?
Unfortunately.
And what's going to happen when you ask to see the data that they used to go to the moon?
Well, NASA admits that they destroyed it all. They said,
Wait. I'm sorry. Wait. You have a car that can travel, what did we say?
50,000 miles.
50,000 miles on a gallon of gas. We did this one time. But yeah, we did it, but we threw the prints away too.
That's right. Now, the B-52 bomber, they were made 70 years ago. 70 years ago. And there's still 200 of them in the Air Force flying every day because there's nothing that works better. So imagine that they spent, which in today's dollars is $200 billion, to build the equipment that went to the moon flawlessly on the attempt, even though no flying machine ever worked on the first attempt, including the Wright brothers' motorized kite. Somehow the most complicated one ever built worked on the first occasion, even though the 747 with 10 years better technology took 169 attempts to get off the ground after millions of aircraft had been built. So let's just say they had this beautiful technology. They admit, NASA's own Don Pennant astronaut admit, they deliberately destroyed the technology, the hardware, the schematics, the electronic blueprints, and all of the radio tapes. Now, if you really went to the moon, if Bill Gates spent $200 billion to build the first computer, it works fantastic. And to celebrate, he throws it in a furnace with all the blueprints and schematics. Would anyone do that? No, of course not. They should have done that potentially with the atomic bomb technology. Let's just say it did.
Wow.
But did they do that?
If there was ever some technology that you should have scrapped,
that would probably be a consideration. Wow. Now, just 10 years after the first atomic bomb was built in 1945, it was 1,000 times more explosive. After Lindbergh flew across the Atlantic in 1927, would it be 50 years and still no one could fly across the Atlantic? When in fact, just 10 years later, thousands of aircraft, 100 times more complicated. So we're flying over the Atlantic. So if they could go to the moon on the first attempt with 1/1,000,000th the computing power of a cell phone, we would have been on Mars 10 years later. we'd be in another solar system by now, and there'd be bases all over the moon. So you would never destroy the technology if you genuinely built it. However, if you were perpetrating a fraud, that's exactly what you would do. You see? So the fact that they destroyed the diagrams, the blueprints that could prove it could do what it claimed to do, and the original videotapes, and the original telemetry that said where the rocket really was, the fact that they destroyed it is proof of the fraud. Because if you really went and spent $200 billion, you would never do that. But if you perpetrated a fraud, that's exactly what you would do. So the fact that they destroyed everything is actually proof that they committed a fraud.
I would like to say something to the young people of the world that said, why would they do that? And I just thought about this. Young people, this is why they did that. This is why the documents would be destroyed. And I'm very serious about this. Young people, they knew you were coming. They knew that this young generation was going to come up. Because back then we were dumb. All we had was a TV, a box.
I wouldn't say dumb, but
no, you understand what I'm saying.
Yeah, naive, maybe.
Yeah, naive. But as American, I mean, hey, you know what? As a people and as a mankind, we had just came out up under the damn rock. When I look back in our lifetime and what's happened. Okay, so I'm just simply saying, young people, the time was going to come that you would have the technology to look back and check these facts. And if you just simply check the facts even right now, you'd understand this. Let me just say this because I don't think people are getting this. When you look around this room, we have 1, 2, 3, 4 cell phones. We have more technology inside this little room. We have 4, 5, 6 more times technology in this room than what they had when they went to the moon. Just in that cell phone.
Yeah, actually, the computing power in a cell phone is 1 million times greater than all of NASA combined. And so how could you coordinate going from the surface of the moon, synchronizing with a spacecraft going 3,000 miles an hour? If you were off by 1/10 of a second, you would die. How could you do that with such a slow computer? It's not possible. That's why they destroyed the original drawing. So first we have one photograph of shadows intersecting at 90 degrees. That proves it. Then we have the logic that you can't be 1,000 times greater in technology in 1969 than today. Right? Then we uncovered classified footage that when you pop it in, it says, do not show to the public. And they're faking part of the photography over and over and over again with a third track of audio of the CIA telling them how to create a fake radio delay as if they're further away from the Earth than they really were. They were on the rocket. They went up in Gemini, they went up in Mercury, and the space station is real. You can orbit the Earth. But going beyond that, they don't have enough fuel and they don't have enough capability to protect people from radiation. That's why the footage that we uncovered is them creating a 1-foot model right in front of your eyes of the Earth as if they're looking back on the Earth floating in space. So they're faking being halfway to the moon. Even my greatest critic says that is what they're doing. They're faking being halfway to the moon. He says, well, they were just rehearsing. And I'm like, why not just rehearse with the real Earth out the window? I mean, every minute cost $1 million and every ounce cost $1 million. So why would you bring all this extra equipment to fake being halfway to the moon if you're really halfway to the moon? Instead of creating a fake Earth floating in space, you would use the real Earth floating in space, you see? So what does that mean? If they're faking being halfway, it's because they can't go halfway. They cannot leave Earth orbit. And what a surprise, 53 years later, today, the Artemis rocket is sending an unmanned probe to the moon. So why is that? Most people don't know, but 1,000 miles up, and every manned mission has been well below 1,000 miles, except going to the moon. There's a field of radiation called the Van Allen radiation belt, which is...
There it is. There it is.
It's 30,000 miles thick. So you have to go through this radiation to the moon and again, coming back from the moon. Now, NASA's own Kelly Smith, and all you got to do is go to Sibrel.com, click on Moon Man video links. My book is interactive. Like read a chapter, watch a clip, read a chapter. But you can watch those clips free at Sibrel.com. You see Kelly Smith, when they originally sent up the Orion spacecraft in 2014, they sent it up in the middle of the radiation field and came back with 2 Geiger counters on board. Okay. So he says this field surrounding the Earth is dangerous. That means lethal. And then he says
could kill you.
That's right. And then he says, word for word, the technology necessary to send humans through this radiation has yet to be developed. So if they don't have that technology today in 2022, how did they have that technology in 1969? So I call up NASA. I say, let me talk to this guy. I'm a journalist. I said, no, he didn't give interviews anymore. And I said, okay, you sent up these probes with Geiger counters. Let me have those readings. They said it's a military secret. I said, wait a minute. You sent a probe to the sun to find out how much hydrogen is in the sun. That amount of hydrogen, it's not a military secret. It's just nature. They sent a probe that we funded as, you know, NASA scientists, journalists, and citizens. We funded the probe to Jupiter to find out how much helium is in the atmosphere. That amount of helium in Jupiter's atmosphere, that's not a military secret. It's just nature. So why would the amount of radiation surrounding the Earth be a military secret unless revealing it would prove that you can't go through it, which is what the guy said. He said the technology necessary for a human to go through it and survive has yet to be invented. So how did the Apollo astronauts go through it back and forth to the moon? They didn't.
I know how they did it. You had to angle just right.
Well,
you got to hit it just right. You can't miss. You only get a one shot. And if you can go through it, because at first they kind of made it sound like it was just a little thin thing. But then you go back and look. It's how thick did you say?
30,000 miles. Now, NASA's own charts that they released in 1969 show the spacecraft going right through it like that. Now, defenders say, well, they skipped around it. There's no way to skip around it unless you launch from the North or South Pole. You have to
know exactly.
Now, the Challenger blew up because they launched at 39 degrees and the rocket couldn't handle it. So in order to bypass the radiation belts, you could theoretically launch from the North or South Pole, but then there'd be 100 degrees below zero. I don't think you could safely prepare rocket equipment under that temperature that would survive. So they admit you have to go through it to the moon, and they admit the technology doesn't exist to survive doing so. And the Artemis Project, allegedly coming up, is
that just got scrapped. They
scrapped it permanently.
Well, they didn't scrap it. It just got delayed. It got postponed.
Isn't that interesting? NASA, and by the way, that's an unmanned probe, allegedly to orbit the moon, because they admit they don't have the technology to leave Earth orbit and survive today. So how did they do it 50 years ago? Well, get this. NASA has never kept a goal that they set. Not a single time, except the most complicated one ever done. The Artemis Project, okay, took 18 years of development. This is with 5 decades newer technology. We went from never putting a man in space, not a single time, to walking on the moon in 8 years with 1969 technology. But today, with 50 years better technology, it takes 18 years just to send an unmanned probe to orbit the moon. How can they have better technology in 1969 than today? They can't. So the photographic proof, the logic proof, the uncovering the classified footage proof, and then it gets even better. As I'm editing my book, Moon Man, I put in touch with a gentleman who was there when they filmed Apollo 11 at his military base. All this is disclosed in the book. The guy was an MP, chief of security. All of this has been verified. If you want to know, just get the book. It's on audio. I read it. It's on Kindle and it's on print, all for under $20. And
you're just doing this for money.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Who the hell doesn't do it? I'm sorry.
No, I've been kicked out of churches and fired for jobs and lost friendships over my pursuing the truth. So I haven't really made anything yet.
I need you to finish this part that you're going to make, because we're going to go on to that.
So we have a guy who was there when they filmed it at his military base. He stood beside President Johnson while they filmed it on June 1st, 2nd, and 3rd of 1968. He gives us the dates it was filmed, the location of the military base it was filmed, and a list of 15 people that President Johnson personally gave him, which he kept. Of these people are allowed in to observe and no one else. Neil Armstrong is on the list. Buzz Aldrin is on the list. I don't even think they were in their spacesuits because you couldn't see their faces. So, and he gave us the CIA code name for the project. Now, here's an interesting thing. Johnson was eligible to run for re-election right? In 1968.
He did.
Because he only served 1 year of Kennedy's first term, right? And he says, I'm not going to run. And they're like, why not? And the Democratic Party says, we're going to nominate you anyway. He says, I refuse. You know why? Because he knew during the next term would be the faking of the moon landing. That's why Nixon didn't have the guts to show up. And he didn't have the guts to be president during that time. So the idea that it's Republican versus Democrat, don't fall for that. They want us to fight each other instead of going after the corrupt people at the top, because Democratic Johnson was physically there. He arranged for the fake moon landing to be filmed, and Tricky Dick Republican Nixon gave it the thumbs up. So both the Republicans and the Democrat faked the moon landing. And if I may add, did Congress and the Senate vote to fake the moon landing? No, of course not. They faked it anyway. So the idea that Congress and the Senate runs the country, see, that's a lie. The idea that we have a democracy, that voting on representatives matters, it doesn't matter. 90% of Americans wanted GMO labeling on a bottle of ketchup. If I'm going to swallow this, I want to know by law if it contains GMO. 90% of Americans wanted that, and it was vetoed. So how can this be a democracy? How can it be a democracy when our elected individuals didn't even vote on the faking of the moon landing? They faked it anyway. You see, the CIA, or whatever you want to call them, they're the ones who killed Kennedy. They're the ones who faked the Gulf of Tonkin. They're the ones who faked the moon landing. They're the ones who did 9/11, and they're the ones who did the last little 2-year scenario we've been going through.
What's the next one?
I'm afraid to say. That's a great question.
And I'm not even, and look, I'm getting off track, but go ahead. What's the next one?
Well, I mean, I think
I know what I think it's going to be.
I think the next thing they're going to do is they're probably going to fake, or not fake exactly, but make happen. That's probably third down the line, or fourth. But they're going to do an economic collapse as beginning. My calculations, it could be starting the end of this month, but no later than December of next year. But I think potentially the end of this month. And then in order to not have this type of communication that we're having, they've got to cut it off. They have to have people only rely on broadcast television. Now, I mentioned this in my book, and I'm the first person to mention this in the last 10 years. Do you know they mandated in 2012 to make HD radio and TV mandatory?
Because you can't pick it up with the regular rays anymore.
You can't be a broadcaster, no matter how big or small, unless you conform to their HD technology. Well, I looked into that HD technology, which was developed by DARPA, the military branch of technology. It has a built-in 10-second delay. Do you know that? When you see the evening news starting, get an atomic clock, it starts 10 seconds after the half an hour or the top of the hour. You see, when Richard Pryor did Saturday Night Live, they put a 5-second delay in there because the guy cursed in his stand-up. Well, the guy's a professional. He's not going to curse, but they were paranoid. So they put a 5-second delay. They thought that's plenty of time to bleep it out. Now there's a 10-second delay, twice the time to bleep something out. And you can just scan people. Imagine if one of the astronauts wanted to confess on national TV. They could just bleep that out. They could make it. So I think they're going to want whatever's coming. They're going to want to control the narrative. And to do that, they have to shut down the internet. And to do that, they have to have an excuse. They'll either say a solar storm or a cyber attack from Russia, China, whoever. That's probably coming. So we got economic collapse, shutting down the internet so they can control the message. Probably a real pandemic is probably coming, either caused by certain medicines that people took en masse for illnesses they didn't even have, or they could release something. The fact is, the people who run the world, their goal, you know, the Bible says from the overflowing of the heart, the mouth speaks. So our friend Bill Gates said one of the ways to lower the population is to, you know, inoculate people for illnesses they don't have. Oops. And he wants to lower the population by 94%. So if you have a room of 34 people, he wants to get rid of 32 of them. Of course, you and I are those two.
Oh, definitely.
So they're going to achieve that. And if you believe this biblically, it dawned on me just a few months ago. You know what the first commandment in the Bible is? Either do or don't do this.
What?
Be fruitful and multiply. And what is Jesus's last words before he ascended into heaven? Be fruitful and multiply. Go and make disciples. So what do the evil people want to do?
Stop reproduction.
They want to lower it. Now, in the last 50 years, fertility has gone down 50%. Now, technology is increasing, right? So if technology is increasing, how can longevity be going down and fertility be going down unless it's intentional? You see, it's on our food, air, whatever, because they openly say they want to get rid of 94% of us. And so that's their goal. Now, take it a next step. We talked a little bit about Planet X. I think Janet Napolitano, you remember Eisenhower's famous farewell speech, look out for the military-industrial complex, that he didn't have the guts to say while he was in office because he knew they would kill him? Kennedy said, I'm going to take care of this, and look what happened to him, right? Exactly. So Janet Napolitano, Homeland Security Director, said this the day she resigned. A natural disaster is on its way, the likes of which the United States has never before experienced. So there's 3 clues there. What is coming? The big event that's coming is a natural. It's never happened in the 245 years of America. And it's a natural disaster that you could know about years in advance. Now, we've had volcanoes and hurricanes and earthquakes and floods, but we've never had an asteroid or a comet or a rogue planet. And you can't predict a volcano or an earthquake years in advance, but you can a comet, asteroid, or rogue planet because of the geometry, you see? That's why I think they want to get rid of people gradually through this little 2-year long scenario. Because if a solar system event happens like that, it's going to wipe out maybe half the people.
Is it going to be a natural event or a man-made event?
It's natural. Okay. I think they're going to let it happen. That way they can blame Mother Nature for depopulation.
What was the purpose of the movie Don't Look Up?
I'm not sure. It's a hint at something coming. And we know that the Illuminati, their code is to technically warn people in some subtle way. I think it means something. And it falls in line with what the Bible says will happen in the last days. I don't think
people give that movie nearly the amount of respect that it deserved for the little subtle Illuminati hints that it put out. I don't think, I mean, each and every one of those characters look like somebody from our past, even down to the nutty scientist who looked like the guy from the purple robe that everybody died and went on. You know who I'm talking about. They died wearing their Nike shoes and their purple robe. He looked like that guy. I'm just saying that movie, I'm sorry, Don't Look Up, you know, and people say that the people talking about the atmosphere and they call them the whack jobs. And I noticed you're kind of saying something could happen.
Well, the Bible says that in the last days, certain things will happen. This twice in Revelation, it says a huge mountain fell from the sky. I think that's likely an asteroid. Then Jesus said one of the signs is that the stars would fall from the sky like ripe figs falling from a tree. I think that's a meteor storm. And then Isaiah, and I've read the Bible 10 times from cover to cover. And the last time I read Isaiah, I was like, oh, Isaiah's about the end times. We know Revelation and Daniel is, but Isaiah talks about the day of the Lord many, many times. It says the earth will be moved out of its place. Now, most people don't know, but prior to 705 BC,
here you go,
the earth had a 360-day year. That's why there's 360 degrees on a compass. And then right after 705, all the calendars of the earth changed to 365 1/4. Well, what happened? Well, the earth was moved slightly further away from the sun. That's why it takes extra time to go around. So what could move, what could pull the earth further away from the sun? Something much bigger than the earth, known as a rogue planet. Recent scientific report that for every solar system, there are 2 rogue planets. These are free-floating planets somewhere near the size of Jupiter that are just roaming throughout the galaxy. And when a solar system captures them, it becomes like a comet and comes around every so often. Now, if we have a rogue planet that pulled the Earth further away from the sun in 705 BC, it could be the instrument of God's destruction. Now, we know that the nemesis of life on earth is called the devil, right? He is a rebel angel, a rogue planet. And get this, prior to 705 BC, every month had exactly 30 days. 12 tribes of Israel, 12 months, and every month exactly 30 days. How could you argue against creation? How could that happen by accident? That's clockwork. So the rogue planet representing Lucifer destroyed the testimony of God's creation. And then the Vatican has the most powerful telescope on Earth, run by the Jesuits.
Which is called what?
The Lucifer telescope.
Which is called the what?
Malachi Martin, a former Jesuit, disavowed the order, and on his deathbed said, they're tracking an object that's going to have a significant part in history in the last days. I think they're tracking planet Lucifer, the rogue planet that destroyed the testimony of God's creation. It's going to come by again and cause meteor showers. Jesus says there'll be an increase in earthquakes. It would cause that. It would cause all the things, you see. And then the book of Acts quotes the book of Joel that says in the last days, many believers will have visions of the last days. I had a vision after my heart surgery, literal vision. I couldn't sleep for more than 24 hours. In a split second, I fell asleep. I saw big white letters in front of my eyes, just like the beginning of a funny thing happened on the way to the moon. It said Luke 21:11. That's pretty specific. So I looked it up. It's basically Jesus answering the question, what will be the signs of the end of the age? He says there will be great earthquakes, which have increased by 1,000% in the last 10 years. There will be disease pandemics. There will be food shortages, and there will be great signs in the heavens. One of the things he says, I think in Matthew 24, is one of the signs of the end of the age is that the seas will be tossing and turning violently. Well, the moon, which is apparently 1/30th the size of Planet X, causes about a 20-foot surge in and out of the tidal effect. So if Planet X comes by and is 30 times bigger than the moon, it would cause the tossing and turning of the seas.
A tsunami?
Yeah. And so, well, not exactly a tsunami, but it could cause what would be equivalent to it all around the coastlines. And so I think that vision is God is telling me, no more wondering, the end times have begun. And then about 6 months ago, I had a dream where I saw a license plate on a car. And the license plate said Mark 13, 13 through 14. So that's pretty specific, isn't it? So I wake up, I write it down, and it's basically, there's two parts. The first part is basically warning of persecution against Christians in the last days. And the second part is basically says, flee to the mountains. And I take that to mean, if you're going to relocate, store up on supplies or whatever you want to do, now is the time to do that. Now is the eye of the storm to do that. Because at some point, they're going to shut down everything, the internet, air travel, whatever. And so if you believe in God, you know, you have to get right with God, and then you have to stay right with God. Because Matthew 24:13 says to believers, the love of most will go cold because of the increase in temptation. You know, pornography and alcohol and drugs everywhere. They're legalizing everything. But he says only those who hold to the end will be saved. And Hebrews 10 says if we deliberately sin after we have the knowledge of the truth, no sacrifice for our sin is left, only judgment and fire. So we have to get saved and we have to stay saved to the very end. And I think we are in the last days. And so they're, you know, the evil people are turning up the heat, trying to do what they're going to do. And I think, you know, even though, you know, the Kennedy assassination witness list was, they say, is as many as 200 people they knocked off. The Gulf of Tonkin, John McNamara from the Defense Department says they just made that up. That led to the death of 1 million people. And of course, 9/11, we have 3,000 architects and engineers saying it's mechanically impossible for a pinhole airplane to go through that and bring that down. After all, we have Oklahoma City blew up half the building. Did it collapse? No, because it can't. It's a grid, right?
Okay, hold it.
All that to say, even though those killed the fewest number of people, I mean, the moon landing did. The moon landing, I figure, as best as I can tell, 20 people or fewer were assassinated to keep it a secret. But even though it's the government fraud that killed the fewest number of people compared to those others, it's the one that would outrage the public the most if exposed, because it's burned in their heart.
Stay right here.
You see?
Stay right here.
That's why
I can't let you get away with this, because I'm old and I have CRS and I can't remember squat. And I want to throw this at you because I just think it's very, very, very important, because you just said that something major could be happening within the next month. I think that information comes to us so freely now, that I think so much information comes to us and we don't pay attention to it. They just told us a few months ago that transformers were low. They pretty much said they're so behind with building transformers that if your transformer goes in your neighborhood or whatever, it's going to be a while before it comes back on. I just saw something that said that the water in Jackson, Mississippi, and shortly won't be drinkable. Well, they just did this in Michigan or somewhere in Detroit where the water wasn't drinkable. And something that I wasn't aware of, and I guarantee you probably know about this, but I'm curious of how many Americans know about this. But do you know anything about the government paying farmers to burn their wheat?
Well, there seems to be an effort to control the food supply. And one of the main, we could say, Illuminati world leaders is Henry Kissinger. He's still alive. And he said, if you can control the food supply, you can control the people. Well, it's a fact. I think in just the last 3 months, more than 100 food processing plants in America have been burned up because of, quote, accidents or arson. 100 food processing plants in 3 months. And then in the Netherlands, I think the government is basically forcing every farmer to sell their land to the government. Then Bill Gates is the largest owner of farmland in America. We know he's behind this little scenario we've been going on for 2 years. It's interesting. He's in charge of this little scenario that we've been going on, and the director of the WHO. They both have no medical training whatsoever. So isn't that interesting? And so
the moment I saw him talking on the news about COVID, I knew it was a crock of crap. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, and I don't know what platform we're on, so I'm watching my language.
Yeah, they say whatever you want to say.
Scan it for audio.
No, but say you're free. You're in my basement, man. You can say whatever the hell you want to, man. It was a crock of bullshit. But go ahead. I'm sorry.
So Orwell, I realized this just a few weeks ago. Orwell said something very profound. He said, "Whoever controls the past controls the future." So the past is the moon landings are real when they're not. So as long as the narrative is that the moon landings are real, then our government will remain corrupt. Do you understand that?
Yes,
so
sir.
Until the moon landing fraud is exposed, our federal government will be corrupt until the end of time. There's no hope until they expose that. Now,
can I ask you one question?
Sure.
Right there. What would happen? What would happen if suddenly, pow, it's been exposed, here it is, and this is how it happened, and this is how your government is a fraud? What would our government do?
Well, I think
if it came down to you're exposed, you're a fraud, and that's never happened to her, what would our government do?
Well, the first thing I think that would happen, collateral damage, would probably be the stock market would probably crash. The dollar would crash, but they seem to want those things to happen anyway. Then they would attempt, I think, to do congressional hearings of sorts. They did fake the moon landing. They did do 9/11. They did do this little scenario for 2 years. According to Bobby Kennedy Jr., the CIA killed Kennedy, period. And I think he knows more than anybody. That's why they won't release the Kennedy assassination file. So seeing how we have such a corrupt government, do we, fine tune a corrupt government, or do we get rid of it? And
did John F. Kennedy get Marilyn Monroe killed?
That I don't know. I have no idea.
You think him telling her about the space program and the alien whatever crap that he was telling her, and she's telling somebody else about it, they're tapping her phone and this man's running his mouth to her? You think the government could let some Goomba squirt that information out? because Bobby and how are you boinking both brothers in the White House?
Well, I don't know if that's true, but you could, if it were true, then I mean, those guys aren't here to defend themselves. But if it were true, then yeah, she would be a loose cannon that they might have to take care of. I wonder why did Anna Nicole Smith, that whole death? It seemed odd to me that was the lead story every day on the evening news for a full month. One stripper gets killed or commits suicide or overdoses or whatever. Why is that the lead story for a month? You know, it doesn't make any sense. And so maybe they were diverting our attention from other things that they were doing. I don't know.
Okay.
But the government can't be trusted, obviously. They faked the moon landing. They killed their own president. And my thoughts, you know, America had a solar eclipse in 2017, and it fell over the largest pagan statue in America, the Athena,
you're good.
Right in Nashville, Tennessee. And then a biblical 7 years later, it falls over Dallas, Texas, the point of no return for our country. Because once the people empowered to protect the president assassinate them because he's going to expose their corruption, I don't think there's any hope left for America. Now, the Bible says that the plagues come in the last days to encourage people to turn to God, and it also adds that most people don't anyway. So I think we have a 7-year probation period, a warning from God between these two eclipses. And if you follow the path of them both, it forms a big X right over the New Madrid fault line. So I'm not sure what's going to happen, but I think it'd probably be a good idea to leave America while you can. There's something called the Deagle Report, a Pentagon paper that was given to the Pentagon in 2015. And for some strange reason, they predicted the population for America in the year 2025 at 54 million people. And they predicted military expenditures at like 1% of what they are now for 2025. And they did every country in the world. And then when they did a report in 2016, instead of projecting 10 years in advance to 2026, they stuck with 2025. They bumped up the U.S. population prediction then for 68 million. Then they did another report in 2017. And instead of going 10 years ahead as normal to 2027, they stuck at 2025, and they bumped it up to like 98 million. It's still a reduction of about, 65%, 70%. And so what do they know back then that for some strange reason by the year 2025, there's going to be a mass population reduction? Now there's a very well known, I think even Nobel Prize winning scientist who studies viruses and medicines thereof. And she predicted that if people take this new medicine that's never been tried before, that she estimates that most people will likely not be around somewhere between 3 and 5 years after the time that they received it. So the average of 3 to 5 years is 4 years. Most people got the shot. Ooh, can I say shot? In 2021.
I think the acceptable word now is jab.
So most people got that medicine in 2021. You add 4 years to that, and it's 2025. The focus of this great reduction in population, you see. So my belief is they're doing this little scenario to trick people into getting this medicine so that they can lower the number of people around incrementally, so that when the solar event happens, it will be less of a shock. Because if a comet asteroid hits, it could kill half the people on the Earth in, a year. But if they pre-kill people gradually, then it will be less of a shock. That's my opinion as to why they're doing this.
Bart, first of all, one of the things that I loved about you and everything, I said, there's so more to this guy, because most people know you're famous, and we haven't even talked about it yet, of what you're the most famous for, right? I mean, you just talked about you calling NASA saying, hey, I want this, Evidently, I mean, this is your MO. When you want to follow somebody and there's some information you want to know, you have the tendency to want to follow people. And didn't you have a encounter with an astronaut? Didn't you have a deal with following an astronaut? And
well, not following. I arranged interviews that we paid them $2,000 an hour. So the idea that I was following them was not true.
You paid them?
We booked them.
Wait, you got paid to get punched in the jaw?
Well,
wait. You got, how the hell you get paid? There ain't no way in hell I'm gonna give you $2,000 and you punch me in the jaw. I don't give a rat's ass if you did walk on the moon.
I should get a refund, right?
Wait. Now wait. You paid them $2,000 and you got punched in the jaw.
The Apollo astronauts will not give interviews unless you pay them $2,000 an hour. So we paid them $2,000 an hour. Now, when I was 4, when this allegedly happened, I was asleep in bed, but my dad was in the Air Force and he got this big VIP package of color prints. So I had pictures of Apollo 11 on my wall from the age of 4 to 14. So I saw pictures of men on the moon 3,650 times thinking they were real. Then when I'm 14, I saw a TV show with a former NASA contractor who said they didn't go, that it was fake. So I go back to those pictures. I'm like, the soil's brown and the background's blue. And you can see kind of a straight line across. They've since color corrected it to make the soil blue also. And I'm like, isn't that interesting? Fast forward another 10 years, I'm 24, I'm a filmmaker, and I'm actually editing a film one day for the guy who produced the TV show with the guy from NASA who said we didn't go to the moon. I'm like, what's that guy's name? He puts me in touch with him. He says, oh, Bart, you're a filmmaker. You should do a film about it. So I take off about 6 months looking into it. Shadows intersecting. 2 of the 3 astronauts don't give interviews. The administrator resigns without explanation before the first mission. The Soviets had 5 times the amount of space.
Why didn't the Soviets? Why didn't the Soviets say fake, fraud, bullshit? Because they're blackmailing each other. And basically, if I had a picture of a world leader with a prostitute, I could give it away to the media and ruin them immediately. Or I could blackmail them year after year after year with more and more and more. So I know somebody who works pretty high ranking in the Chinese space program. They say everybody knows that the moon missions were fake. And we agreed with the U.S. government not to say anything in exchange for technology, which they're giving. NASA is giving the Chinese space program technology. I have a source who works there who told me so. So we're smarter than the Chinese?
Well, they do certain things well, and we do certain things well. And so the
sharing of technology.
The best way is to combine both. So all that to say, when I originally looked into this and I said, it's quite possible they faked it, I turned it down. I thought, well, I like puzzles and I kind of have a relentless personality, as you pointed out. If I'm going to, look into it, I'll look into it. And so I thought if anyone could figure out whether it was real or not, it would be me. And then I thought, well, if they really didn't go, that could be dangerous. Do I really want to risk my life for what Nixon did? And I decided no. 5 years go by, I start reading the Bible, and I developed a conviction of right and wrong, good and evil, truth and lies, light and darkness, and a judgment to come. And I said, look, if they did not go, that's actually more profound historically than if they'd actually gone. Let's say they could go, plant a flag, whoop-de-doo. But if they lied about it, lied to encyclopedias, murdered people, that's more profound historically than if they'd actually gone. Do you see that? So the faking of the moon landing is extremely historically significant. It tells us about our character. And I said, this is important. Mankind should know. I said, I'm going to die anyway, so I might as well die for a just cause. So it's with that zeal and knowledge, already having classified footage of fake photography, knowing beyond a doubt they faked it, and being financed $1 million by a board member who builds rockets for NASA at an aerospace company. I know they didn't go. So after the first film came out, which you can see at Sibrel.com for free, a funny thing happened on the way to the moon, I said, well, why don't we just track down these guys and ask them to swear in the Bible, whether they walked on the moon or not. So I set up interviews with them, paid them $2,000 for 1 hour of their time, showed them the fake footage that we uncovered where one of them turns beet red and says, get out of my house, starts cursing, literally kicks me from behind.
I was going to say that's where you got, okay.
And then in the commotion, we leave a wireless microphone on him accidentally. And my cameraman accidentally forgets to stop recording the camera that's in the backseat of the rental car. So we're recording the astronaut's private conversations in his house with the door closed. And after I showed him this footage of fake photography, he and his son are talking about whether or not to call the CIA to have me assassinated. Now, if we really went to the moon, why would the CIA have to kill some silly person who thinks they didn't go to the moon. But if I'm a journalist uncovering a real fraud, then I guess the CIA would have to be notified. So this recording is in the second film, Astronauts Gone Wild, which has the infamous punch in it, where I kept asking Buzz Aldrin, who told me privately he does believe in God, and that's why he did not swear on the Bible, you see? And so if I walked on the moon and someone thought otherwise, I would find that hysterically funny. Sure, I'll swear in a Bible. I'll swear in two. You okay? But he reacted as if I walked up to him in front of his wife and says, oh, your mistress says hello. How dare you reveal that? You see, that's why they're angry, because I'm right. Because a sword with no point causes no injury, you see? And yeah, one guy.
In my community, we say a hit dog a holler, but yeah, I get you.
So one astronaut punched me, another astronaut threatened to punch me, another one threatened to shoot me, another one kicked me, and one was talking about with his son whether or not they should call the CIA to have me eliminated.
Is it that easy? And here's what I mean. Here's what I mean, because just with you saying that, just with you saying you heard that, there are certain people you can reach a certain point that you can make a phone call. And I mean, we hear about, oh, I can make a phone call and have you eliminated. So you just heard somebody say, I should make a phone call.
Well, they're in that circle because they faked the moon landing. And that was done by the CIA. We know because some of the people on the list of the 15 people, the security guard there gave us was CIA. One was NSA. One was Navy intelligence. And a couple of people were from NASA. And one person was a science fiction writer to give feedback on the fake sets for their authenticity.
Who, and look, I know that we're running on short on time, but I want to throw a couple of things out here to you. The guy who wrote the 2001 Space Odyssey. What's the movie with Jack Nicholson in it?
The Shining. Well, that was Kubrick who directed them both. Yeah.
Okay. What did he have to do? The Kubrick 2001 Space Odyssey, didn't he have something to do with helping?
Well, no one knows, but I mean, the moon missions were faked. So they had to have someone in charge of the fake photography. So that means you could either hire the general of the media department at the Pentagon and get good security and amateur results, or you could hire the best filmmaker on the planet, who coincidentally in 1968 was shooting a film about going to the moon. So I suspect they did hire Stanley Kubrick to do the first mission. And in that film, The Shining, he even has the little red rum boy with the Apollo 11 shirt.
Apollo 11 shirt. We have that.
And then his last film, called Eyes Wide Shut.
That was a creepy movie.
He insisted contractually that it open on a particular day. It must open on this calendar day. And if you don't agree, I will not sign the contract. That day was July 16th, 1999, the 30th anniversary of going to the moon. Now, there is an interview circulating on the internet that claims to be Kubrick confessing. It's not, because they refer to my punch, which happened in 2002, and Kubrick died in 1999. So that's a fake disinformation. The fact is, Kubrick probably was responsible for at least the first faking of the moon mission. And then lo and behold, he gets a lens from NASA that they just built to shoot his next film, Barry Lyndon, under natural lighting. So he somehow had it in with NASA for some reason. So that's probably what happened. And it's kind of just a side note. It doesn't really matter who did it. It more matters that they did do it.
Now, here's the problem that I developed, because here's what I thought prior to this. And I mean, just recently, I felt like that original moon landing was fake. But after doing some research and even just looking at you and some other people, I question whether or not we ever had the capability to do it.
Yeah, I thought the exact same thing.
I'm like,
Jimmy. I thought the exact same thing. I thought, well, maybe they faked the first one, but then they figured out maybe the later one's real. But that's not true, because the picture of the 90-degree intersecting shadows is from Apollo 17, right? And that's the last mission to the moon, which is obviously also shot with electrical lighting. And then furthermore, the footage that we uncovered shows them faking being halfway to the moon. Now, what does that mean? It means they can't go halfway. If I were faking it, I would make it real up to the point where you couldn't go any further. Let's say they could land, but for some reason the spacesuits didn't work. I would film really landing and fake the walk. Let's say they could orbit the moon but not land, then I would film really orbiting the moon, right? You want it to be real.
Right.
But they can't even do that because they're faking being halfway to the moon. They cannot leave Earth orbit. And they all had identical equipment. One 1969 Volkswagen Beetle has a maximum speed of 65 miles an hour, so they all do. So if Apollo 11's Apollo equipment cannot leave Earth orbit, as the faking of leaving Earth orbit proves, that means none of the equipment could leave Earth orbit. They never went, and Apollo 17 picture of the shadows intersecting proves that also.
Bart, let me ask you one thing, and this is the one that, and I, twofold, threefold question I'm going to say here to you. Because first of all, these kids nowadays, and let me just say this. When I watched your film, Astronauts Gone Wild, I think that was the one of you going around. When I saw that, what year did you do that?
I did that, I think it came out in 2003.
Okay, in 2003, that was one of the greatest things that I had seen. I mean, I was a fan of that. I was the one in plain sight, or the one about the change, about 9/11. I mean, all of that great work that was going on. But for some reason, now when I go to look at you, if I go look up something on the YouTube about the slap, according to these little young kids, suddenly you deserve that slap.
Well, it's
you deserve you bloke. You deserve to be slapped. You approached an astronaut. How dare you?
Yeah, I mean, I thought we're supposed to have freedom of speech, and I can disagree. You know what I mean? And it's interesting. The district attorney, who we had assault happening on camera. Remember, sticks and stones will break my bones, names and everything.
Don't put your hands on.
You can't hit somebody because of words. It's illegal. Yeah. And so we had that illegal act on camera. And I said, "Are you going to, charge him with assault?" They said, "No." I said, "Why not?" I said, "We're not going to charge a national hero with assault."
No, you.
So the scales being equal. Now, if I had punched him, what do you think would have happened?
No,
I think we would have been treated differently. Don't you think?
Come on, they would have told you we could charge you.
They would have taken me to jail,
but we'd have had to kill you.
Yeah,
we could have charged him, but we'll have to kill you.
I mean, so yeah, I mean, there's not, and it's pretty sad. This is the thing. This is why, if the truth about the moon landing fraud comes out, it will cause more change than any other of the other conspiracies, more than JFK, more than 9/11, because it's burned in people's hearts. They prayed for them. They waved their flag. They cried. They gave them medals of honor for lying.
Here's what I want to say.
Our national heroes are liars.
Here's what I want to say to these people, and I keep talking about young people. And here's what I realized when I watched this, and I watch all these videos. You know what? You all weren't alive when this happened. You're telling a story that you've been told. I was alive when this happened, so I know. And even back then, I know how everybody was locked in front of the TV. And I've never told this, but my next door neighbor, our next door neighbor, Ed Relaford, comes in, and Ed Relaford is bat crap crazy. He's been to Vietnam, crazy, and everybody in my family is locked in front of the TV, and it's a great event. And he walks in and goes, "That's bull crap, man. That damn thing, man, they ain't done nothing. And that's done in the studio." And he's literally saying, "How in the hell is he talking to him in the air? You can't." And it was something about what he said that I completely, for some reason, I believed him. Okay. Now, back to these smart aleck kids. And this is what I wanted to ask you. Because there's this question of the moon dust and the lander when he lands. Okay, and it lands, and they talk about the dust actually when it takes off. When that's not even important. How much did that thing weigh? That lander? How much did tons, right? Tons. And you landed it with some air, with some.
Well, here's an.
He couldn't even fly it on Earth.
Yeah, I got an email from someone recently. They pointed out that the fuel tank to ascend was smaller than the fuel tank to descend. And so it was actually 1/10 the size. So actually descending, because you have gravity, should take less fuel than ascending, right? From a zero stop.
Exactly.
So, I mean, there's so many proofs that they didn't go to the moon. And I have a friend, kind of, military Illuminati friend, whatever you want to call him. And he says, people will see the truth in front of them and deny it. Like I talked to a college professor and I showed him all this proof we didn't go. He says, I still think we went. There's nothing you could say that would convince me otherwise. And I said, what if you saw an astronaut on TV tearfully confessing that we didn't go to the moon? He said, I still think we went. So my friend says, a funny thing happened on the way to the moon, came and gone. The Illuminati was fine with it because people are going to believe what they want to believe. But he said, astronauts gone wild, you pissed them off because you're making their people look bad. So I remember, as the film was being made, I think it must have been like maybe the 35th anniversary of landing on the moon. And I was sitting in bed eating oatmeal, and Neil Armstrong, Michael Collins, and Buzz Aldrin were standing on the lawn of the White House with the White House behind them, the seat of authority on the planet, right? And the ones who faked the moon landing. And the astronaut was talking to the reporter by satellite, and the reporter said, I'm glad we're talking by satellite so I don't get punched. And I'm eating my cereal oatmeal thinking, they're talking about me. I am rocking their boat, the White House's boat. What I'm doing is dangerous.
Well,
and you think it would have dawned on me before then, but that just kind of spooked me. I'm like, what I'm doing is dangerous. You know how many CIA agents it takes to screw in a light bulb?
How many?
Well, I could tell you, but then I have to kill you.
Oh my God. Okay, listen here. Let me just tell you this. As far as your film, Astronauts Gone Wild, and I told you how much I loved it, how much I appreciated it. Let me tell you the thing that I loved most about it. And despite whatever you might have thought about it, me going into it, man, I cannot tell you how happy I was to see that this movie was not about a bunch of old drunk white guys dancing around on the screen showing their titties, okay? Because the title was a little bit deceiving, Astronauts Gone Wild, okay?
Well, that was the executive producer's idea.
Hey, wait a minute. For you young people, you don't know, there's a little nostalgia for you, okay? Bart, thank you so much for joining us. Man, I can't tell you how much I appreciate it. Good luck to you. Where's your website at that you can go look at this stuff?
Sibrel, my last name, S as in Sam, I-B as in boy, R-E-L, Sibrel.com. And you can get the book there on audio, on Kindle, or in print. I read the audio book, and this is for the first time the actual military base where Apollo 11 was filmed, the dates it was filmed, the CIA code name, and a list of 15 people who were there at the time, some of whom are still alive, all given to me by the chief of security of the military base who confessed us on his deathbed.
I just remembered the question that I forgot to ask you, and I'm horrible at this when the guest is getting ready to leave. But since we've established that Buzz Aldrin's a liar, so we shouldn't believe him about being on the moon and seeing aliens?
Well, the NASA, the powers that be, want you to believe that they have the capability to go to the moon. If it takes communing with aliens on the dark side for you to believe it, then so be it. We have to remember that Edgar Mitchell spent his entire life saying he walked on the moon when he didn't. And he spent his entire life saying aliens are real. And I don't think they are. If you go to Sibrel.com, scroll down to an article I wrote, spent hundreds of hours of research in it, called Are There Really Aliens from Outer Space? And it goes into many scientific proofs that we're really it. We're it. And there are no radio signals coming from anywhere in space that are of human, of intelligent origin. We're it. And so that's a lie. They're trying to influence us into believing in aliens for some reason. But the guy who says aliens are real also said the moon landings are real. So watch out.
If aliens are real, or let's say this, they say that our technology, they say that the super technology we have comes from aliens. So maybe this super technology that we're experiencing is actually coming from demons.
The top two UFO researchers, one French, one American, after 40 years of research, came to this exact same conclusion independently. Number one, UFOs are real. Number 2, they're not from outer space. They're from Earth. And number 3, we think they're demonic, not extraterrestrial.
Are they coming out of Antarctica?
I don't know. There's probably just something to do with the telescope down there, probably tracking maybe a rogue planet, comet, or asteroid, because it's an infrared telescope, which is what you need to see these things. And it's at the South Pole, indicating that it might be coming from underneath us, which would make it very hard to know about in advance. So
what are they trying to do with CERN?
Well,
I'm sorry.
It seems like
I'm sorry. I had to. I told you I wasn't letting you get away.
No, but it seems logical to me. If you get down to the smallest particle, you'll come out in another dimension. So, therefore, if they're trying to do that, they're theoretically trying to open another dimension. Now, their logo is basically the devil. It's the Indian version of the devil, the god of destruction.
Yes.
And most people don't know this. Washington, D.C., it's not in the United States. It's its own territory. The Vatican is not in Italy. It's its own legal entity, country, if you will. And so is CERN. It's not in France and it's not in Switzerland. It's its own legal territory. Nobody can enter that without being an act of war on CERN. For some reason, they wanted that legal independence that I don't know why a lab would need that.
Never knew that. Bart, thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much. Tell people once again what your website is, and I'm not going to ask you any more questions.
Sure. Just go to Sibrel, Sibrel.com.
Thank you so much. This has been my greatest interview of my life, sir.
Take care.
Thank you, man.
Be blessed.
Thank you. Woo! We'll be back with some more JimSpiracy. Thank y'all. Thank you so much for sticking with me. I know it's been a little long journey, but this is what makes this thing worthwhile to me. Oh, I can't tell you how much I enjoyed talking to that guy. I could sit up and keep on talking to him. Listen, thank y'all for sticking with me. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. Tell somebody about this show. Hey, man. We just crest 600 viewers, 600 subscribers. I wish I had more, but I'm happy with what I have because those that I have, hey man, they loyal, they good people, and I appreciate y'all. Hey man, on today's story, let's get out of here. My Bible story for you today, I'm going to talk about Peter. Somebody said, well, where's this story about Peter? Well, it's in all 4 of the Gospels. Okay, it's in all 4 of them. Find one and pick it. You're going to find the story of the Last Supper. And you're going to find out during this Last Supper, everybody, when we talk about the Last Supper, when Jesus uses the phrase, one of you will betray me, due to the fact that we already know the story, we automatically assume that they talk about Judas. And Peter probably thought that they was talking about Judas. But for some reason, of all the disciples, Peter was the one that said, I will die before I deny you, my Lord. Jesus told him, he said, hey, man, this very night, he said, this night, before the rooster crows, man, you're going to disown me 3 times. Peter said, never, me Lord. So fast forward a few hours. They come in serving no-knock warrant on Jesus. He's arrested. They take him downtown, beat him up, give him the business. Peter's outside by the fire, chilling, keeping warm. And then this woman come up and said, hey, you're one of those Jesus guys, aren't you? And without blinking an eye, Peter looked at her and said, No. Me? Moi? No way, lady. You must have me confused. And then somebody else comes up to him and says, hey, I recognize this dude. I recognize him. He was with that false prophet in there. He should be in there too. Without blinking an eye, Peter said, I don't know that dude in there. I am not with him. Then the group gathered, began to crowd. You know how we get, man. And the group gathered and they all pointing at Peter. So now, I guess in order to prove that Peter wasn't with Jesus, Peter had to start cussing the people out. He had to start cussing people out there. Look here. Shut up and tell me I wasn't with that. I'm going to tell you. I guess he cussed so good that by the time he got done cussing and swearing, they say that the rooster cranked out with a cock-a-doodle-doo! Cock-a-doodle-doo! Or as the King James Version said that the cock crowed. And bam, boom. Said that when that happened, said that you could see, said that Peter could see Jesus from across the yard. He probably looking out his cell, looking at him. I could imagine Jesus looking at him like this. See there? Now, the question is, and I thought this was interesting, the reason I chose this story. Why was this story in all four Gospels? And you can pretty much find this story in anywhere you go look. They're going to talk about this story. And I think that this is interesting because you do realize that later on in the Bible that Jesus later put Peter in charge of the church. Gave him the keys to the church. See what I mean? I told y'all I ain't there yet. I don't understand it. The dude denied him 3 times. Probably helped get him set up and get him arrested. Denied him 3 times, but then he still turned around and gave him the keys to the church. Why would you do that? You know why? Because the Bible said that after Peter realized what he did, after he realized, because sometimes, man, we can do something, man. We can get caught up in the moment. We can say and do something. Didn't really mean it. But it said that when Peter realized what he did, it said that he wept bitterly after his denial of Jesus. And I'd imagine that by him weeping bitterly, he was remorseful. And I have to tell y'all, man, I think I could be wrong, but I think that's all God wants. Wants us to just be remorseful. You know, wants you to be truly repentant. And I think all God wants us to do is, you know, if you're truly sorry for a lie. And you know, one thing about lies, man, a lie is something that we think ain't no big deal, man. We think it ain't. But just this little lie that Peter told could have been catastrophic to the world. But Jesus had to show you that if you just bow your head, if you're just earnest, if you just repent, he said he'll take you back. And that's what he did to Peter. And that's what he'll do for me. And that's what he'll do for you. I'm going to see y'all next week in JimSpiracy. Y'all remember, you know the rules. May the Lord watch between me and thee while we are absent, one from the other. I'll see you next week on JimSpiracy. I'll holla.
Give them what they want, what they need, what they ask for. Give them what they want, what they need, what they ask for.
Yeah, are you not entertained? Ain't this what they tell you hustle for? I'm on my gladiator monologues, Russell Crowe. And honestly, I don't see what the fuss is for. You let your money blow and all we trying to do is sow it. Just so you know, this is Kingdom Biz. No Brooklyn Nets, I think we know who team this is. Come on, come all, and don't forget to bring the kids. And y'all gon' need a different planet just to dream this big. So bring your stacks to the table, and I'ma bring my faith. And at the end of the day, we gon' see who win in this race. And since God is the judge, he'll probably throw out my case. So do us a favor, get that look off your face. They feel like you spit that fire, got them industry rap. Why you doing that Christian rap? Nobody listen to that. Then I reply with a sigh like I'm missing the fact. I'm trying to spread this holy gospel till my savior get back.
I'm going in one time, these record labels all in my face, trying to forfeit my race. But still I'm going in one time, no matter the opposition I face, staying true to my faith. I'm about to give them what they want, what they need, what they ask for. Give them what they want, what they need, what they ask for. Give them what they want, what they need, what they ask for. Give them what they want, what they need, what they ask for. Well, everything they offer, yeah, I'ma give it back. You can have it, crossing the world on my back, Mr. Atlas. I'm trying to get the people what they lacking. That's why I act a donkey on the track. Hit a passion, got something to say. You wanted to play, then come running my way and ruin G status is dead. No, ready to go, about to go in, you already know. Got my instructions, now give me your audience, hand me your mic and I'm ready to blow. One for the money, two for the show, three for everybody who encouraged me to go, get it. We finally did it, I ain't never turning back, shawty. I'm fully committed to my beliefs. I'm committed to the city, committed to the streets. I'm committed till I get it. Now people calling my phone check, telling me to not hold back. Bring back that old set. Bet it up, I'm on that. Going in one time, these record labels on.
You know,
Is that you?
You know what? Listen, please bring that up because no one, that picture has always been there.
I bet it is you.
And that is me.
Mm-hmm.
That is me. And yeah, that's me. Bottom line, that's one.
And you haven't lost your joy. Are you a believer
in Jesus?
Yeah, God.
Yes.
So the fruit of the Spirit is joy, right? Okay. I bump into people all the time that claim to be Christians, and they're just unhappy all the time. I say they're not saved. They're deceived. They're going to church every Sunday, but unless you have joy, you don't have the Holy Spirit. And I see joy there, and I see joy here all these years later. You still got it.
Listen, let me tell you this. You asked me. That's enough to make me cry.